Dice Tower Tonight, episode 103.
Up, up, down, down, left, right, be a box fart.
Welcome to Dice Tower Tonight, a video cast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On tonight's show, we look at the pipeline from video games to board games, which lead to bonus levels full of coins, and which hide hidden piranha plants. Perhaps I'm stretching this metaphor a bit. Plus, Crystal will face the chat in a new game. We talk about some recent play sessions, and we answer questions from the audience live. I'm Eric Summerer, and joining me now, the Chell to my Cave Johnson, it's Crystal Dax.
Oh, I would have... Why didn't I dress as this Shell today? I could have dressed... I didn't even think about it. I have the entire outfit, obviously, because of course I do. I love Portal very, very much.
Indeed. How's it going, Crystal? It's been a lovely, eventful 2 weeks.
Yes, it's going pretty well, actually. And it is, in fact, September, which is a thing that we were, confused about during our last episode, because how in the world is it September already? But it's here. As always, I'm excited to hang out with you in the chat this evening.
Yeah, me too. My kids headed off to school. Today was the first day of school, just a half day, heading to their various classes. But, meeting at the bus and the bus being late when it came home and after-school cookies and finding out how their day went. It was a very eventful day for us here in the Summerer household.
Well, I would say it was an eventful day in the Dice Tower world, because Badges and Hotel for Dice Tower West went on sale today, which is really exciting, and also made sure that I had a very busy day because lots of things on social media.
I bet you did, and my brother actually shared the your post because he got to come to Dice Tower West in 2020, and he had a great time, and I think is looking forward to coming again in 2022. That's cool. I'm excited that he's gonna try and make it back and is sharing the word that badges are on sale. So that's great. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Yes, we're really excited too. And if there is anybody in the chat who doesn't have their badges yet, just go to dicetowerwest.com and all of the badge and hotel information is there. And if you follow Dice Tower West on any of the social medias, you'll see a lot of extra information there as well.
Excellent. So we have a chock-full show. It is full of chalk this evening.
Chalk everywhere.
It is just everywhere. We've got some games to talk about that are related to video games. I have a game to play with you in the chat that I'm excited about and got way more involved than I thought it would be. But before we get to that, we should talk about what we've been playing lately. Who should go first today, Crystal?
I'll go first.
Okay, let's hear what you've been playing.
So, as I mentioned during the last episode and recently, I have not been gaming in person with anyone because of rising COVID numbers, especially here in Las Vegas. It's been pretty bad. So all of my gaming lately has been done online, either through Board Game Arena or board game apps. And so I've been learning new games. I'm also really excited that Board Game Arena has been adding a whole bunch of new games.
Yeah.
Including, I just saw they added it's in beta mode right now, Eric, a game that you and I played together at a convention a couple of years ago. It was your and I's both our first play of New Frontiers. The Race for the Galaxy board game is now on Board Game Arena. And I'm very excited to play it again because it was one of those things where I was like, does a Race for the Galaxy board game need to exist? And I was like, no, probably not. But then we played it and I was like, oh, wait, this is actually really fun. So,
yes.
Needless to say, that's on my list to play soon. But this weekend, someone taught me a game that I had never played before that I think is a little bit older. And then I promptly taught it to other people and played it a few more times. And that is called Tranquility. Are you familiar with this one, Eric?
No, I'm not.
Okay, I'm going to actually pull it up on Board Game Geek because I don't know what year it came out. I'm going to find that out real quick. But Tranquility is a cooperative game where you are kind of similar in vein to the game, where you're basically trying to put numbers into a line or into order of some sort. Came out in 2020, designed by James Emerson and published by, of course, a whole bunch of different companies. Let's see, Lucky Duck is one of them, White Goblin, there's a few listed here. But So in this game, there is a grid, and admittedly, just as I mentioned before, I've only played this digitally, not in person, but there is a big grid of open spaces, and all of the players have an individual deck of cards. All of the cards in total that make up all of the decks range from 1 to 80, and then there are also a handful of start and end cards in the deck as well. Each player gets an individual section of that deck as their own draw pile, and the grid essentially is basically a weird way to lay out a giant line, because each line connects to the one before it, but not in a snake pattern. So like when you get to the right-hand side of the bottom line, it jumps up to the left-hand side of the next. And so it's the way I've described it to people when I'm teaching it is picture one giant line of cards instead of the boxy grid that you're seeing in front of you. Your goal is to fill in that grid completely with cards. As long as the lowest number is in the bottom left corner and the highest number is in the top right corner, and everything else fits within the sequence in some way, and then you play an end card after the grid is filled in, everybody wins the game. You have 5 cards in hand at any given time, and when you play a card down to the grid, if there are no cards on either side of it, left or right, then your turn is over. But if there is a card next to the card that you played, you have to discard cards from your hand that total the difference between the 2 cards. So for instance, if there's a 40 down on the grid and I have the 41 in my hand, obviously that's the best card to play next to the 40. But I have to discard one other card when I play it. So there's this weird, it like motivates you to not place cards next to one another unless you absolutely have to. Ideally, you want to kind of fill in weird gaps first and then later go back and like fill in the blanks between them, which is odd because like your brain wants to go, oh, 40, let me put the 41 down. But technically that's not ideal. If you have like the 43 or 44 in hand, it might be better to place that a space or 2 over first, discard nothing, and then later play the 41. If there are cards on either side of the card, the game is in your favor in that situation, and you only discard the difference between the 2 that are closest to each other in value. So if it was 40, 41, 44, you would only discard 1 card when you played that 41. And that's basically it. There's a start card that comes out at some point. There's a few of them in the deck, and when one comes out, a player is required to play it. It is what starts everything, even though you've already been playing cards at that point, which I don't quite understand thematically. But the thing about the start card is all of the players collectively have to discard a total of 8 cards when the start card gets played. So there's a lot of discarding in this game. And you still have to fill in this grid. You don't need all of the cards to do it, but you need a lot of them. And so if you don't discard intelligently, you can get yourself into a really tricky situation. Very simple mechanically, kind of like the game or other games like it. But whereas I do not like the game, which I've mentioned before, this one, it was one of those games where my first play, I didn't like or dislike it, but I was interested by it. And that's why I immediately, like the next day, picked it up and taught it to a couple other people, and we played it a couple of times, and it's growing on me even more now having played it a couple of times. I think it is better at smaller player counts rather than larger ones. But yeah, it's as far as like light card-based co-op games go, I'm enjoying it, and I'm glad it's on Board Game Arena. So yeah, if anybody wants to try it out, you can do so for free over at BGA, and that's Tranquility.
Nice. So if anybody does check it out and needs another player, I need to play it too. That sounds fun. Very cool. So before I get to the game that I wanted to talk about, I have a short story that sort of relates to weird thematic connections. Let me explain. I got a weird text from my mother today, board game related. She just, out of the blue, texted me a crooked screenshot of the rules to Category 5. Category 5 being one of the English editions of Six Nimmt, the classic card game, where you're placing numbers in a row, and if you place the 6th card, you have to take all the cards in that row. it's a lot of, it's a classic game. Many people have played some version of Six Nimmt, but this is specifically Category 5. And she just texts me this shot of the rule book, a specific section of it, and says, "Here are the rules." And I said, "Okay, why?" And she sent me, here, I'm going to bring up a picture here. She sent me this picture and said, "We had to put stars on all the Category 5 cards." And I said, "Okay, why did you write on these cards? There's Sharpie marks all over her cards." And she said, "I had to mark the Category 5 cards because you can't play after you play a Category 5 card." And so I go back and for one thing, I'm like, there aren't Category 5 cards. They don't exist. But if I were able to zoom in, and I can't for you, underneath the numbers, there are names of hurricanes, actual hurricanes that have hit, I think hit the United States, but have been actual hurricanes. And many of them, some of them are Category 5 storms that were real storms that existed. And so she starred all the ones that had a 5 on them, because in the rule book, they have this thematic connection that they say, the reason you have to take cards after you have the 6th card is because there's nothing stronger than a Category 5. So once you have a Category 5, you can't place any more cards.
Oh.
And so some people, and my mother was not the only one to do this, some people on Board Game Geek have been like, so if you place a Category 5 card, it blocks everything, right? And others are like, no, that's not how that works. This is just Six Nimmt with a different theme. And others are like, no, I play it that way, that it blocks the row. But I think it's just a thematic flavor text, basically, that has been interpreted as a weird thing. But my mother's response to this, after I'm like, wait, why are you writing on your cards? There are no such things. She said, well, we were discussing it. I'm playing with my sisters right now, and we decided that when we're with you, we'll play your way. And when we're with us, we'll play our way.
That's the most adorable answer ever.
And so I said, okay, that works. We'll call it the sisters variant. And someone on Board Game Geek at least agrees with you. So anyway, that
makes sense. Like, if you looked at the card and you're like, well, this is a Category 5, and that's what the rule book says, like, that makes complete sense to me.
Yep.
That's honestly more intelligent than most of the rules mistakes I've made, because usually when I make a mistake, I then go look in the rule book, and I was very clearly wrong. Like, no wiggle room at all. I just missed something entirely.
Yeah. So, the actual game I played, I was looking for something with a solo mode the other night, and I pulled out a small card game from a couple years ago, 2019. This is called Shakeup. It's a reverse deck building game. It's from Dominic Michael H. In Shakeup, it's designed as a 2-player game. Each player has a big deck, not huge, but a deck of cards that you start with all of them. This is your company. And each of the cards has costs for all of the people. So this guy costs $3,000 to have in your deck. So all of these cards have some sort of cost, most of them at least, have some sort of cost. You also, on the table, have money cards, and they're two-sided, the money cards. So this is income if it's like this, but it's a loan if you have it on this side. And so you start out with, I think, $6,000 in loans. So you have a bunch of these 2,000 loans in front of you. The object of your game is to end the game when you are profitable. So that means you have enough income to cover not only your loans, but also everyone that's in your deck. So the cards that are in your deck, you can lay off. These represent the employees from your company. So you've got an assistant sales director and an assistant operations director. You can upgrade them. The reason they're in these sleeves, that they come with these sleeves, they can get flipped, so they are now a more powerful or even a less expensive version of the card. and you actually take them out of the sleeve and stick them in the other direction, so now they shuffle with the correct side up. But you can also lay them off and get them out of your deck. But of course, now you don't have that ability in your deck anymore. But that is one of the ways you thin it enough that you can afford everyone in the deck. I think you start with like 70,000 in debt, and you start with 0 income. So there are some cards that get you more income, and then you can get rid of the loans, and you can do all sorts of things to work your way toward profitability. Of course, you have an opponent that's doing the same thing, and some of their salespeople will force you to take loans or discard your income and basically attack each other. I mentioned I played the solo version of this, which has only a single deck, but then you're playing against like an event deck, which requires you to have certain types of cards in your hand in order to avoid nasty penalties. So if it might make sense for me to get rid of my whole sales force because I can't attack anybody. But if I don't have a salesperson in my hand when one of these events comes up, then I will have a much bigger penalty than I would otherwise.
This is way too close to real life, and I don't like. I'm literally like, oh, you mean how companies are like, we don't need a copywriter, anybody can write copy, and then you lay off all the copywriters and you realize, oh no, not anybody can write copy.
So you've identified one of my issues with the game is that it is maybe a little too close to real life. And I mean, you look at some of these nice little illustrations and you're like, that looks like a nice person. I don't want to get rid of her. She's useful. There's also a whole lot of math in the game. When you're done, you're not allowed to look through your loan pile or your income pile. So you're collecting these cards, and you're not allowed to look. You can see the top card, but it's sort of a gut feeling thing. And so you come to a point when your deck is empty, you can call an audit, they say, and say, I'm going to go for an economic audit, or I'm going to go for a technical audit. And if you have 12 upgraded employees, you can win technically. And if you are profitable, you can win economically. But you can't make sure until you call an audit. And so you have to basically lay it all out and do all this math with all these cards, like little tiny values, 2s and 1s and 3s and 5s, totaling it all up, and then maybe you win. So I found it a little fiddly like that, and also thematically it can get a little and I feel like the solo game can get a little samey because there are certain cards that are far more useful than others in the solo game, and so it's easier to get rid of those, upgrade these, get rid of those, and sort of follow this general path to victory. It's a neat idea, and I like deck building games in general, but I don't know how much play time this one's going to see. I think this is going to end up on the trade pile. As unique a theme as it is, I think it's a little too mathy for me. So that's Shakeup from 2019.
Okay. Well, I hadn't heard of it, and it does not sound like my cup of tea. But, you know, I know there are some people that really like solo gaming, and they'll take whatever they can get in that regard. Because although, admittedly, the options have gotten more prevalent in recent years. Yes. So.
And you can also play this if you had a second copy. You can play with 3 or 4 players. There just aren't enough cards to do multiple players in this box.
I wonder, like, in my brain, I'm thinking, like, if you were playing with multiple players, it would be neat if you could theoretically hire people that other companies have laid off or something, and maybe, like, get some kind of an interesting bonus from doing that. And that would make me feel a little less guilty. Like, if the people I was laying off could get a new job right away, like, that would make me feel less guilty.
There is a rehire action that you can get someone back into your deck when you have removed them, but I'm not sure how useful it is.
Okay.
But it is an option.
All right.
I think it's time to play a game, Crystal. What do you think?
I'm ready. I'm excited. I don't have any idea what we're playing tonight, but I'm ready for whatever it is.
Good. So I'm going to pit you, Crystal, against our chat. Except for this game, chat will not be known as chat. Chat is going to be known as the mob. Because we are going to play a ridiculous version. Let me hit this, and let me hit this. Come on, hit it. There we go. We're going to play 1 versus 100. Or as
Oh.
close to it as we can, because I'm not sure we have 100
Okay.
people.
I'm so excited right now.
So what is going to happen is that, Crystal, you are up against the chat. And your job is to defeat chat. I'm going to ask a series of questions. Chat will also get to answer these questions. And the more people that answer correctly, the more get to move on. So chat, if you answer correctly, you can answer the next question. However, if you get the answer wrong, I'm just going to ask you, honor system, to bow out for the questions moving on from there. Now, Crystal, your job is to get to the final question and beat whoever is left in chat. Now, you can do that earlier, but the more questions you answer, the more people you have a chance to eliminate from chat, and therefore defeat the mob.
Okay, so what happens when I screw this up horribly and get the first question wrong?
If you get the first question wrong, well, then you've lost, and we all have a good laugh. And
okay, perfect.
So the first thing I'm going to do is get my straw poll for the first question. Hopefully, I've ordered these in some sort of order that it won't be too bad, and you can get the first couple of answers.
I've hidden chat in like the actual chat in YouTube, so I don't see any discussion there.
Yes. So let's see. What else did I need to tell you? Oh yeah, you have some lifelines. You have some helps, as they say in 1 versus 100. You can, at any point, poll the mob, which is when I will tell you the results of, let's say you pick one of the 3 answers in the multiple choice question, and I will tell you what percentage of the mob answered that. You may ask the mob, which for our version means you get to look at chat for, let's say, 15 seconds.
Okay.
And trust the mob, which is when you just take whatever answer the most mob members picked. So you have those available to you, and you can choose those as well. So let's move on to the first question. What is the best-selling video game of all time? Is it Super Mario Brothers? Is it Halo? Or is it Minecraft? So you can think for just a moment. I'm going to load up the straw poll and see if people have been answering. Yeah, we've got about 28 votes in here so far. So, Crystal, you can take your time, discuss whatever you want to do, and let me know what your answer is.
So this is one of those things where, like, I have a lot of pop culture knowledge, but I don't know how up to date it is, because I know for a fact that at one point Super Mario Brothers was the best-selling video game of all time because it was bundled with the original Nintendo system. And so that, like, automatically, or no, was that like Wii Sports was also up there too because of that? Oh gosh. Now I'm gonna doubt everything. The only I don't think Halo is a contender here, and I'm not hating on Halo. I just don't think that Xbox has any kind of the reach of Nintendo over time. Minecraft is ridiculously popular though. Like, I know nothing about Minecraft. I've never played it. I mean, I know what Minecraft is, obviously, but wait. So if I just get it wrong.
I mean, you have your helps, but I mean, you only get to use them once.
On the first question.
To answer your question, Coralu, yes, I do actually have the answers to this. We're not just going off of what chat says.
All right.
This is supposed to be the easy first question.
Yeah, which I apparently predicted right that I would struggle with it. So I am going to say A, Super Mario Brothers. Is that wrong? Is it wrong? Is it wrong?
Let's say if you were really thinking about it.
Okay.
And you wanted to, I'm going to pull a Peter Sagal here. And so you're telling me that this old game has sold more copies than one of the 2 newer games?
Okay, I pick C, Minecraft.
And you're right, Minecraft is the correct answer. The last time I saw chat, 20 people had voted for Minecraft. That was the number one answer. Over 50% of the folks who voted.
Okay, but did a bunch of people vote for Super Mario Brothers?
Yeah, 14 people said Super Mario Brothers. So you were not totally out of the realm of possibility.
At one point, it was Super Mario Brothers. Minecraft's been around long enough at this point, I guess, and it's on so many different platforms that that's probably why it has an edge.
So I'm going to say, Crystal, you have to get through at least 3 questions before you can bail and jump to the final question.
Okay, that seems reasonable.
I'm loading question number 2's poll right now into the chat.
I'm sure the chat is having a heyday with my incorrect answer at the moment.
So next question is, in what year was Nintendo founded? Was it 1981? Was it 1957? Or was it 1889?
Oh gosh, I know it's old because it wasn't a video game company. Nintendo did something entirely different before they were a video game company. It's an old company. I mean, even 57 doesn't even sound old enough to me. Well, I don't remember what it is that Nintendo made before video games. But 89 is jumping out to me as a possibility. I will...
So you do have your helps if you want them.
Yes, I'm going to use a help. I'm not going to pull up question 1 again and let you force you to let me cheat. So I am going to ask the audience, which means I get to look at chat.
Asking the mob says you get to look at chat. Yes. I'm just going to quietly count to 15 or so, and you can start. Let's give chat just a second to catch up. Let me know when you have chat up.
I have chat up now.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Everybody is saying C, it appears. And by everybody, I mean 3 people, but that's enough. I'm going to hide the chat again. Yeah, Hornet says C. Everybody's okay. I should have trusted my gut. It is C, 1889.
1889 is the correct answer. There we go. Yes, my highlighting went by way too fast, and I hit the button twice. But 1889 is absolutely the correct answer. 16 people in the chat answered that correctly. As far as if you didn't answer questions, chat or mob, before, and you're just jumping in now, sure, you can jump in for the next question and still be part of the mob. But if you get the answer wrong, you're supposed to bow out. So we should have about 16 people, more or less, popping in for question number 3, which is, Pac-Man was designed to resemble which food? Let me bring the poll up and get it into the chat.
You know, it's fun when it's 6:30 and your dogs usually get fed at 6 o'clock, and you realize that you didn't feed them at 5:45 like you usually do on Dice Tower Tonight night.
Oh no!
They'll be fine, but Lana's just a little bit angry at me right now.
Oh boy. Is it pizza? Yeah. Is it cheese? Or is it a cookie?
So I know that Pac-Man's name was different. It was Puck-Man or something like that. It got changed. Or it was Paku Paku or something. But I think it was Puck-Man, and then it got changed to Pac-Man. I actually don't remember him being made to resemble food. The only one that strikes me as something that is possible would be a cookie, but I don't know why. So I will go ahead and I will trust the mob, and I will go with the same answer they go with.
You're going to trust the mob. All right, I'm going to refresh results just a couple more times. And let's see where we are. So the mob says B, cheese, like a wheel of cheese.
That is not what I would have gone with.
11 people said that. 25% said pizza, and only 1 person said cookie. The correct answer is pizza.
Oh no!
So your trusting the mob has failed. So now we move to the lightning round because I came up with all these questions, and I want you to at least attempt them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
while you have failed, chat has won. The mob has defeated you. We're going to move forward with these polls. Sorry, I'm not going to load the polls up just because we're going to power through the questions. So next up, what is the highest grossing movie based on a video game? Is it Mortal Kombat from the 90s? Is it Detective?
Box office numbers.
Yeah.
Which of those two things?
It's box office, like highest grossing.
Okay. So it would be it seems very difficult for something released in the 90s to beat something released later. I don't even know when Pokemon was released, though. I know Detective Pikachu was great. I'm not even a Pokemon person, and I loved Detective Pikachu. But I don't know how well it did. I feel like it didn't do as well as they were expecting. So, do I have my last help or no? Oh no, because they're not.
Because I haven't brought the poll in.
So then I would guess.
I guess you can look at chat. You're all working together now.
Oh, okay. Well, here then let's open the chat and see. Oh gosh, it's like A, B, C.
Yes.
Perfect. A lot of B's and C's. Those are what I'm thinking as well. Just based on, I'm gonna go with Pokemon, the first movie. C.
And you would have lost that one too. It was Detective Pikachu.
Dang it! Give me one more, Eric.
Okay,
I gotta redeem myself.
Let me. So this is what was Steve Wozniak's favorite game, but this isn't the one I'm going to give you. Was it Zaxxon, Tetris, or Joust? The co-founder of Apple's favorite game was Tetris. That's an interesting little. First video game character in a Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. Was it Donkey Kong, Mario, or Sonic the Hedgehog? This is still not the one I'm going to give you. What was that?
Gotta be Sonic.
It is definitely Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
What dining franchise is the founder of Atari also responsible for? This is a good one. Is it Chuck E. Cheese? Is it Olive Garden? Or is it Chili's?
I'm going to say Chili's.
Nope, Chuck E. Cheese.
See, that seems like the too obvious answer.
The Minecraft world. If Minecraft were an actual planet, it would be the size of what real planet? Would it be Mercury? Would it be Earth? Or would it be Neptune?
Neptune.
Neptune's right. Well done. Okay, here's the last one we're gonna do. What was the original intent of The Sims? Was it an architecture simulator? Was it addiction recovery? Or was it a psychological experiment training exercise?
Addiction recovery.
It was an architecture simulator. They actually wanted you to build the buildings. The people in there were just to sort of illustrate how the buildings would be used.
Huh.
So the idea was eventually, after we got through the questions and you decided to bail, I was going to ask, what is a group of Endermen in Minecraft called? It's called a haunting. I did not know that. The last thing is, what is the world record for the all-time highest score in Super Mario Brothers? And so whoever was left in the mob would have also came up with their best guess, and you would have guessed, and then hopefully there'd only be like 4 or 5 people in the mob left, and whoever was closest would win.
Okay.
So what's your best guess of all-time highest score for Super Mario Brothers?
For Super Mario Brothers. I mean, I'm trying to remember how many digits the field has. Like, I know the time field has 3 digits, but the score field probably has 5? I don't think it has 6, or I don't know if it can grow. I'm gonna say 86,000 points.
The correct answer was 1,435,100.
Wow.
So
This clearly not my game or my night.
indeed. Well, that was our game of 1 versus 67 or whatever. And hopefully it was enjoyable. I'm
It
sorry
was great. I
that
loved
you
it.
got
I love
bailed.
1 versus 100. It is one of the game shows though that I probably would never want to be on, because even though I have a lot of knowledge, like that format apparently just, yeah, like it's hard. I don't like it as far as like my knowledge and how it works, but I love the game. So
Well, I'm glad we got to try it. We can move on though to our thematic discussion of you may have guessed from our topic of 1 versus 100 is about video games, or specifically board games that have come from video games, which is actually sort of an interesting, wide topic, wider than I originally thought. Because I don't know about you, Crystal, but I sort of separated things into 2 categories. Some games that were specifically about licensed video games, and there are a few of those, but there's also a wide variety of games that are based on a genre or a type of game, or emulating a specific game without being that specific game.
yes, and in some instances, then the non-licensed version of a game eventually picks up the license and becomes the exact thing that you knew it was all along, such as Flip Ships, which there's like a Space Invaders version of that
Yes.
game coming, right? So like we all knew that Flip Ships was basically Space Invaders, but now it's really going to be Space Invaders.
Yes. And what else was I thinking? There was, well, the other direction. There was an Age of Empires 3 game that then became the same game but without the license. Age of Discovery, Age of something.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on exactly which one it is, but they lost the Age of Empires license, and the game still had legs, and so they turned it into a generic Civ building game.
Which that's not the only Civ building video game that's been turned into a board game, because like the Civilization video games have also been turned into board games, which makes sense. Civ building works in both areas fairly well, so that feels like a pretty natural transition to like bring that kind of game over into the board game space.
So I guess let's talk about the literal translations first, the licensed versions of video games. What makes a translation of a video game in board game form work? Like, that's sort of a difficult thing to do, to take a single player or a multiplayer experience from the video game world and the strengths that a video game has and turn it into something made of cardboard and paper.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to specifically say, because in many instances, the video games that I've played that have been turned into board games, I haven't played the board game versions of. And in some instances, I've played the board game version of a thing, but not the video game. Like a good example of the latter, I really liked the Xenoshift board game when it came out. It was one of the first. I don't know if you can hear Lana whining behind me, but if you hear weird noises,
Yes.
That's the dog. She's fine. She's just upset with me right now. But yeah, like the Xenoshift board game was one of the first board games that had an app companion with it. And, of course, the whole board game community was up in arms about that. But I've never played the original Xenoshift video game, so I don't know how they compare experientially. I don't know what I was trying to say there. But I like the board game.
I'm trying to think. That sounds like that might not have been Xenoshift. Was that XCOM? Is that what you're thinking of?
Oh, that might be what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yes. They confused my X-titled
Yes.
board games because there aren't that many of them.
I also
okay,
have
so
never played
yeah.
XCOM, and had played the app-based co-op game. I didn't like it that much, but very different from XCOM, the game, which is more of a tactical team shooter sort of thing, where you're trying to keep your team alive. This was much more of a global strategy, threat mitigation sort of thing of the alien invasion. Another one that I pulled off the shelf, the Portal uncooperative cake acquisition game, gets major points for being thematically related to Portal. Like, there's so much cool Portal stuff in this box. And I love the back of this box that they made look like an old, cheesy board game with people looking really bored playing it. And I swear this is the guy that was on Square One Television. I think that's Larry from Square One Television.
That does look like Larry.
I swear that's him. But anyway, the game itself, I'm not as much of a fan of because it's just a very different animal. You're trekking your people around trying to collect cake and do it faster than your opponents. And yeah, there's a little bit of route optimization as you do shoot portals around, but it's not nearly what the game is, the video game is, where you're solving puzzles and escaping.
Right, that's the thing. The puzzle solving is the heart of the video game, and I've never played the board game, but, I've heard enough people talk about it to know that it's not puzzle solving.
It's not. And so it hasn't hit the table very much, but I'm keeping it because it's got so much flavor. They actually, distressed the outside of the box to look like it's from the 1970s. It's awesome. Minecraft Builders and Biomes, speaking of Minecraft, is a little closer to what Minecraft actually is as you build up I've got the illustration on the back. You've got that stack, which I remember collapsing and dropping all over the place when I tried to show it in real life. You're mining and digging into this pile and getting the resources you need, which is something you absolutely do in Minecraft. My children love forcing me to play Minecraft with them, and then they come and steal my stuff. Like, I'm happily mining in a mine, and they come and take my stuff because they're so much better at it than I am. Anyway, and then you build stuff and fight Endermen and zombies and stuff in the game. So that one feels more like the game it's based on.
Sorry, Eric. Everybody's distracted by my dogs sitting back here and just staring at me. Oh, gosh.
But those are the two licensed ones that I had back here. I know there have been Centipede and other classic arcade game licenses, but I haven't played those.
Right.
There was the one that Plaid Hat did, the BioShock, which was another one that didn't feel like the game. It was a very different animal, even though it had the BioShock Infinite license. It just wasn't the same thing as playing the video game, and so I think it got panned, even though it was a solid, troops on a map game.
Yeah.
It just didn't feel like playing BioShock.
Well, and I think you bring up a really good point, because I think where board games that are trying to emulate a video game, whether licensed or not, I think where they tend to shine best is where they take whatever mechanisms they can to evoke the feeling of playing the original thing, not necessarily emulating the exact experience, but creating a similar but different experience that gives you a similar feeling.
I'm not sure I understand.
I don't know why Siri thinks I'm talking to him. Everything is weird. I can't. Today, everything is broken, apparently, in my house. I can't even keep my thoughts together. But yeah, there are certain games that just, evoke a specific feeling, and if you can get a board game to evoke that same feeling, then I think you're one step of the way there to creating a game that, if you want to market it to video gamers who like a specific type of video game, I think that's the way to do it, and it doesn't necessarily need to be licensed, but obviously it'll get more eyes on it if it can be.
Yeah. Were there any direct license games that you had highlighted, Crystal?
No, not really. At least not that are based on actual video games. I don't tend to go for those. I think where my brain has shifted over the years to recognize that there are licensed board games that are awesome, I think for whatever reason, the video game side of that, my brain hasn't quite made that complete switch over. Because I think, like a lot of people, I used to have that mindset of licensed games aren't typically as good as non-licensed games. You know, like people pick up an IP and do whatever with it. And then we do still have board game versions of video games coming out that are not great, you know, somewhat objectively, like the Oregon Trail card game.
Oh, yeah.
Like not the Daryl Andrews designed Oregon Trail board game, which is actually fun and good, but like the Oregon Trail card game, that very much is a license slapped on a not super gamery experience. And that's no shade if people like that game at all, but just like, it doesn't really do what the Oregon Trail did. And it also doesn't do what it does as well as it probably could either. So
there was a Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego game that was also came out about the same time. It was sold in Target. That was enjoyable. And it sort of fit the theme, and it played the theme song when you opened the rule book. That was cool. But
wait, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was literally about to say, if Rockapella's not in the box, I'm not interested.
Rockapella was in the box. You opened it up, and it said, "Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?" And that was it.
Watch your back.
Yeah. It was, yes. But the game was okay. It was better than the Oregon Trail card game. So one type of game that seems to be easier to translate into a board game form than, say, other genres is the abstract puzzle game. I think it's easier to take those and make them work. So you get stuff like bricks and other roll and writes where you're turning Tetris into some sort of game. And there's some very successful polyomino games, roll and write games, where they've taken the Tetris concept and it actually works as a solid game.
I don't own bricks, but I own blocks, BLOXX, I think, and that one very much is emulating Tetris. You are dropping pieces down and slotting them in just like you would in a game of Tetris.
Bubbly Pop is basically Dr. Mario, where you've got it's a two-player game, and you've got the pieces that come into the center and then get dropped on either side, and you can rotate them and swap them before you drop them into position, and then eliminate them as you create sets, which then give you powers and let you attack the other player. So it's that Dr. Mario duel sort of aspect. Very cute game. I like this one a lot.
Somebody in the chat mentioned one that was on my list for sure. Super Skill Pinball is a really good example of I guess pinball technically is slightly different than video games, but hey, there it is. And I have a very special love for Super Skill Pinball, and not just because my name is in the rulebook. Like, I love that game so much, and I've talked to Jeff about it endlessly since back when it was in prototype stages. And yeah, it's super great, and it emulates the feeling of playing pinball way better than I could have ever dreamed. Like when he presented it to me, I was like, holy cow, this is really cool. It
really works. Another one that's shown up in the chat is Puzzle Strike, which is based on, what was it? Super Puzzle Fighter is the game that this feels like. It's more of a bag builder, deck building game, but it really feels thematically like one of those attack puzzle fighting games. And the last one of the abstract ones that I have is called Paradox. This is maybe one people don't know about as much, where it's the match 3 concept. You've got all of these tokens, and you're rotating them and sliding them and swapping them around to create sets of 2, 3, or 3, 4, and 5, which can then trigger your collection of these tokens, which you can then spend to achieve your goals in the game. It's sort of the resource collection aspect of the game is a match 3 puzzle, and this has always had a special place in my heart. I've enjoyed that one.
I think in creating, like, so let me go over the games I grabbed off my shelf. So I grabbed games that feel like video games, but aren't necessarily meant to emulate a specific video game in any specific way. And the first one I grabbed is Slide Quest, which literally says the video game board game.
Yes, and I totally forgot about that one.
For those of you who are not familiar, Slide Quest is a cooperative game where the box is the board, and you have these handles that stick out from the sides of the box that you slot in there, and it's basically the board tilts based on where you push those handles, and so everyone cooperatively has to get the little guy to do specific tasks in each level of the game. And yes, there are levels like in a video game, and you have to work together, or if you play it 2-player and each person has 2 handles, it's very funny because you'll think you're pushing one and you'll push the other. And I actually recommend playing this with 2 people because, I mean, 4 people is still frantic fun, but when you're only controlling one lever, it's a little less exciting. But you have lives that you can lose. You can pick up extra lives. Like, it has a lot of the hallmark video game features. So even though it doesn't emulate any specific game that I know of, it really does kind of give you that video game experience.
Yes.
Another one I grabbed, which I think this could probably... There are a lot of games that have app companions that probably could fit into this category just because they do involve some digital aspect, and so it's already bringing them closer to the video game experience. But that would be Chronicles of Crime. There are a ton of video games where you're solving a mystery of sorts, or a puzzle, or a murder, and this is the board game version of that, basically. And just because it has an app doesn't necessarily mean it is more video game-like, but I think the game itself would be like that regardless if you were looking up the information in, a booklet, and the app just makes the game more seamless. But it's really fun, and so if you like games where you are having to solve a mystery of some kind, then Chronicles of Crime is great for that. And the last one I grabbed off the shelf was Rail Pass, which I don't think most people would immediately go, well, that feels like a video game. But in my estimation, this game kind of like feels similar to those popular cooking games where everybody is frantically running around grabbing ingredients to complete a thing. Like, this to me, like, if you have friends that I think they're called like Cooking Mama or what, like those types of video games, this seems like a board game that you could theoretically introduce to those types of gamers because it does create a similar experience. Kitchen Rush. Yes, that is what I was thinking of, Daniel. Thank you very much. So for those of you who don't know, Rail Pass, it is a real-time game. Oh, yeah, Overcooked as well. Thank you. Everybody in the chat, you guys are the best. So, yeah, like, it's real-time. It's frantic. You have to yell things at people. You have to pass little trains back and forth. You have to fill up its things and get the other players to cooperate with you. Like, honestly, I think this is more video game-like than a lot of video game board games, like, in a certain way. And then I had one more thing specifically that I wanted to mention that I realized I had an epiphany, Eric, when I was prepping for this episode. Okay. So one of my favorite board games of all time is Runebound. I like both 2nd edition and 3rd edition. And I've never quite been able to explain why I like it other than you're going on an adventure, and that's fun, and I enjoy that. And, like, while I was writing this down, like, my list of other games, Runebound was not something that I was going to write down, but I saw it on my shelf, and I thought about it, and I was like, wait a second. When I was a kid, I loved the original, what was published in the U.S. as Dragon Warrior. Overseas, it was Dragon Quest. Yep. And the original, most people don't talk about as much because the later titles, Dragon Quest 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 added additional playable characters and all this other stuff. But me, as a tiny human, couldn't handle the complexity of, more complex video games. And the original Dragon Warrior, just one person wandering in a vast wilderness, fighting bad guys and going on quests. That's what Runebound is. It's the same. Like, except there's just other players that happen to be wandering around near you. And I was like, wait a second, do I like Runebound, like, for the same reasons that I liked the original Dragon Warrior? So I think I might actually have an explanation for more of why I like that game. And yeah, I think Runebound is also a video game-like board game, apparently.
Okay. All right. Chat came up with some good suggestions. Tommy says Castle Panic is a tower defense game in board game form.
Oh, yeah.
Joe says one that I pulled off the shelf, Battle at Kemble's Cascade, which thematically is a perfect side-scrolling spaceship game where you're defeating enemies and boss characters and all sorts of cool stuff. In fact, when they premiered this at Gen Con the year it came out, they actually had an arcade machine that they had labeled as the Battle at Kemble's Cascade. I don't know if it was just a reskin of something else. It probably was. I don't think they programmed a... I don't know. I didn't get to play the game, but they had an arcade machine that...
That's pretty cool.
That was labeled that way. Adrenaline was the only other one I pulled off the shelf, which is a first-person shooter style, but it's actually a sort of a Euro game, victory point collection fest with a lot of cool weapons. So, best of both worlds. And the one that just came to me that I can't believe I didn't pull off the shelf, Cantaloupe.
Yes.
The
if you're
puzzle
talking
game.
Point-and-click adventure games.
Point-and-click adventure games, and many of the escape room games can feel like that too. The adventure stories, the Cosmos series. Maybe it's just adventure games. What do they call it? Adventure something or other.
Yeah.
With the dungeon and monochrome ink.
Ink, yeah.
Those are very solid. They feel like point and clicks, but nothing feels as much like a point and click adventure as Cantaloupe, which I am anxiously awaiting Chapter 2 on. We hopefully will see before the end of the year. That's another fantastic one. Any other suggestions?
Gator Dave says, what about the Zork-like one with the funny name? I don't know if he's talking about Cantaloupe, but if I want a Zork board game, for the record. I would desperately love to have a Zork board game. I actually, when Time Stories first came out, I wanted to design an expansion for Time Stories that was Zork themed, because I think the Zork world would work really well in the world of Time Stories. But of course, at this point, I'm kind of like, I don't want to go back to Time Stories anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. If there was another game that is
Parsley?
similar to Zork that I don't know about, I want to know about it.
Well, that's Parsley, at least in my mind, is the role-playing adventure where you've got we played a short one here on the show, where one player is playing the computer and everybody else has to be the players entering commands to work your way around the world and solve the mystery. Somebody mentioned that Slay the Spire is getting a board game or card game implementation, which should be interesting. There's a lot of, unsure feelings about that. Like, is it really going to capture the addictive nature and the magic that is that deck-building video game?
Right, because Slay the Spire takes the deck-building genre from board games, or that's popular in board games, and it uses the digital medium to take it to the next level. So bringing that back to the board game space, like, how do you upgrade a card like that, or other things? It'll be very interesting, or like boost your stats so easily. I'm curious to see what they do with it.
Yeah. Terror in Meeple City was mentioned by a few folks, or originally it was titled Rampage, and it actually related a lot more to Rampage, and then the folks who owned the Rampage trademark said, excuse us? No.
Yeah, I actually own the copy that says Rampage on it, so I'm kind of happy about that. I like the title better.
I let it go, though, because it just wasn't hitting the table. But
I haven't played it in years, but I feel like that will be a fun one when my nephews get a little bit older and can play board games, like, and theoretically they come visit me. I think that would be a fun one with them. Yeah. Post-pandemic, obviously, because, like, blowing on things right now doesn't seem like a wise idea.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
A few others that I saw go by, Boss Hunter. There were a number of like pixelized video game style games. Pixel Lincoln was one. Boss Monster, that's the one I think. Boss Monster.
Yeah.
And a few others that came by as well. So there is a wide variety of video game style board games out there. Any others that you wanted to mention before we move on to questions in the chat?
I'm looking at my big old list, and I or you or the chat has touched on just about everything I wrote down. Cool. I think the only thing that I missed, I do think that there are some pretty good storytelling games that also kind of like do similar things to video games that kind of feel like a choose your own adventure. So like something like Legacy of Dragonholt kind of fits into that space. where, yeah, like you're just going on an adventure and you're reading a bunch of text to get through the adventure and you make choices and that changes what you can do. That feels a little bit video game-esque to me, but obviously that genre didn't come from video games. It just like is in my mind like that.
Coralu reminded me of Wacky Wit, the Pac-Man game, which actually did feel a lot like Pac-Man, where you're moving. One player is Pac-Man and the other is the ghosts, and you're moving around trying to get all the dots on the board. An expensive game, but one that really felt like the video game. So we have a couple minutes that we can hang around and answer questions that you may have, but then Crystal has to run off and feed the dogs. I did see.
They're fine, I swear. Like, they will be okay to getting dinner an hour late. Lana will get her medication and her food, and she'll be just fine.
Oh, good. I did see one question go by from Joe asking if I was going to be at the retreat this coming week. I am not able to make it to the retreat that is coming up in September, which is now, next week. I should be at the one in November in Orlando, though. That's at least the plan right now. Fingers crossed that's going to be a nice, safe travel trip, but we'll see.
And in case anybody wasn't here at the beginning of the episode, speaking of conventions, badges for Dice Tower West, badges and hotel for Dice Tower West went on sale today. So if you all are interested in coming to Dice Tower West, it is March 2nd through the 6th at the Rio All Suite Hotel and Casino right here in beautiful Las Vegas. And I would love to see all of you there. So go get your badges for that at dicetowerwest.com.
A couple questions going by about the house. Daniel asks, what are the black windows behind you? They're windows. This is the basement of the house, but it's one of those where the house is on a hill. So this side of the basement opens out into the backyard. So I have a nice view for my workday and don't have to turn on too many lights and have nice sun coming in. But by the time we air for Dice Tower tonight, the sun has gone down, and so it's dark.
Ooh, that's a good question. Coralu says, how much fun did Eric have narrating Paula Deming's new video over on the Things Get Dicey YouTube channel?
Yes, Paula Deming asked if I would be interested in participating in a Things Get Dicey comedy sketch, and I, of course, was delighted to help out. And so I got to voice an infomercial, or one of those "Has this ever happened to you?" style of commercials. If you haven't, for one thing, if you aren't subscribed to Paula's channel, Things Get Dicey, you absolutely need to do so. She and Lawson are putting together some amazing content. Just the production values are through the roof. It's clever, it's unexpected, it's sometimes spot on satire of the board game hobby, but still, generally positive and fun, and you come away chuckling. And so anyway, I got to participate in this and had a wonderful time doing it. You should absolutely check out these videos. The best thing is that I have a college roommate who used to produce this style of commercial, and so he has made plenty of these styles for real, and he said, "You nailed the form." Which like the best
good.
compliment is that's exactly what we were trying for.
That's awesome. Yeah, it was really funny. All of Paula's stuff is just brilliant.
Some folks looking for an update on the game room. It is still a bit in limbo. We had some family stuff come up, and so we just haven't been able to focus on it. I'm still waiting for the walls to get painted and repaired. We had some nail pops that we fixed, so it's spackling and painting that needs to happen, and then I can assemble the shelves and actually get things going. No word on when the table is coming. I should maybe ping. I don't want to be the guy that's like, when's my table coming? But at some point I should probably be like, when is my table coming? And
I know, it's one of those things I've been, because I think I've mentioned it a handful of times. In 2020, I backed the modular gaming table from Wormwood, and I was in wave I want to say like 7 when I backed, which originally was slated to ship in either July or August. Their timetables have gotten pushed back just a little bit, but like I'm in that paranoia phase where like I watch their updates every week and I'm just like, did I miss an email? You know, like did they open up my tier?
Yeah.
And I'm not mad at all. I'm not upset. I just don't want to be that person that misses like when they open up my part, because sometimes those emails from Backer Kit or whatever else
Right.
get filtered into the freaking promotions or spam filters, and I miss them. I just said filters instead of folders.
Yes.
That's not a word.
It's like a folder filter. It's a filter.
Oh, maybe that is what my brain was doing. I like that you were able to interpret that. That's good.
I do this all the time. It's
Oh,
basically my day job is to conflate words together, and then my engineer's like, no, that's not a word. I'm like, yeah, it is. It's a folder filter.
Yeah, totally.
Here's a good question for both of us. Who haven't you played a game with that you'd like to? Maybe a content creator or a celebrity?
Ooh.
I know I have an answer that I've given before, that I should probably come up with a different answer.
I mean, gosh, like I will say that I've been very, very lucky that I've gotten to play board games with a lot of board game celebrities or board game personalities over the years. And so I feel very, very lucky in that regard. If we were talking actual celebrities, like it's hard for me to not pick Weird Al just because I think he would actually be really fun to play board games with.
Yep.
But if we're talking celebrities that I know already play board games, then probably Sonequa Martin Green, because she runs games of Mafia for the cast of Star Trek Discovery, and a lot of the members of Star Trek Discovery also play D&D. Oh my god, to play D&D with like Anthony Rapp would be so much fun. Like if I even if I could just sit in, like I don't even have to be a playable character, like to sit in on one of their D&D sessions, which he does long Twitter threads recapping their sessions, and they're fascinating. Yeah, like Mary Wiseman's husband Noah is their GM, and a whole bunch of the cast members all play in this campaign, and I've diverted to that. I'm playing D&D with Anthony Rapp. That's my answer.
I mean, I also was thinking Al, partially because I want to play a more serious board game with him. Weird Al is an incredibly intelligent man. He graduated high school super early. He is, if you actually hear one of his normal interviews where he's not on, he's incredibly thoughtful and intelligent, and he would be a blast to get to delve into a strategy game with, and not have to, play a silly party game. I'd love to play a game with Dax Shepard and Kristen Bell.
Oh, for sure. They're on my list as well.
But I like your idea of playing an ensemble game with an actual ensemble. A group of people who are used to working together in one context, and then you can get them together in some sort of adventure game. That would also be a lot of fun.
I mean, just playing any of those big social deduction games with actual actors sounds both terrifying and fascinating, because that they can hide or project emotions for a living. So I would lose immediately, but I don't care because it would be great.
Indeed. All right. Any other questions we wanted to hit before we...
Well, I know you already mentioned it earlier, but Joe must have missed that part. Joe was asking if you were going to be at the retreat next week, and you said you are not, but you're going to be at the one in November. Yep. So we'll just answer that again real quick. Eric, what if Weird Al utterly destroyed you at Merchant of Venus?
I would
you
be
feel
delighted. I would. I love it. Anytime I get to teach that game and somebody enjoys it, I'm pretty happy. Except the time that Tom destroyed me at Merchant of Venus and then said I never need to play that again. Then I'm like, okay,
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we're not getting destroyed by Weird Al in any board games, unfortunately, as much as we would like to be. But we had some fun playing games with the chat tonight, didn't we, Eric?
We did. The chat made a lovely mob. A wonderful mob.
They really did. You all are our favorite mob.
You're our favorite mob.
So we will wrap things up here. In case you all haven't done it yet, but I see a whole bunch of you already have. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, please click the little thumbs up button below the video on YouTube to let the algorithms know, and to let your friends know as well, because when the algorithms pick it up, then it serves this video up to other people who like the same type of content you do, and so it gets us in front of more eyes, which is always a good thing. We are here every Wednesday, and not every Wednesday, every other Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And we will be back in 2 weeks on September 15th, the middle of September.
Yep, that's how it works.
And yes, it is time for me to go play Feed the Doggos before they eat me alive.
I would be sad if that were to happen.
That would not be a good way to go. I mean, death by like puppy kisses sounds good in theory, but I feel like it wouldn't be so great if So thank you all very much for joining us tonight. We will see you in 2 weeks, and until then, I'm Crystal Dax.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And you've been watching Dice Tower Tonight.
Thank you for watching. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. Crystal and I will see you in 2 weeks for another installment. Our show is supported by viewers like you. Thanks. Dice Tower Tonight is produced by Crystal and me with assistance from Tom Vassell, Mike DeLisio, Roy Kennedy, Chris Yee, and Rob Searing. Our frontier beyond ketchup, mustard, mayo, relish, barbecue, and hot sauce provided by The Seventh Condiment. Timothy Pinkham composed our theme, and hosting is provided by GameNerds.com. Give us your feedback on the Dice Tower Guild at Board Game Geek, on Facebook or Twitter, or by emailing us at crystal@dicetower.com or eric@dicetower.com. You can hear more from Crystal on the Board Game Blitz podcast, and I can be found giving Tom a hard time on the Dice Tower. Find those shows and more at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all of us at the Dice Tower, have fun.
Have fun gaming.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
What is the seventh condiment anyway?